Okay, so we are still factoring, and we are now on page 3 of our factoring review. So we're going to factor trinomials. Remember, trinomials mean there are 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, when a doesn't equal 1. So our quadratic is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And factoring was pretty simple if this was just 1x squared. But once you have another number in front of the x squared, like 2 or 3, then you need to take some extra steps in your factoring. So instead of finding numbers that multiply to -6, I need to find numbers that multiply to the product of a and c. So multiply to ac, which means in this case they have to multiply to -12. I got that -12 by multiplying 2 times -6. And the numbers need to add to the b value, which in this case is 1. Okay, so just like before, we're going to make a list of numbers that multiply to -12. Could be -1 times 12, -2 times 6, -3 times 4, and we're looking for the pair of numbers. When you add them, you get 1, and that would be this pair. -3 plus 4 is 1. Now, because there is a number in front of the x squared, I cannot just put these numbers right into the factors. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break up the 1x. So instead of writing 1x, I'm going to write -3x plus 4x. Now -3x plus 4x does equal 1x, so I haven't changed anything, I just wrote it differently. Then bring down the 2x squared, and bring down the -6. Alright, so what we want to do next is we want to factor by grouping. You're going to group the first two and the second two. So group these and these. Often you see the teacher will just divide them like that. So in the first two, I want to take out the greatest common factor. 2 and 3 do not have a common factor, but both terms have x. So I'm going to take x out as the common factor. And if I divide this one by x, I'm left with 2x. And if I divide this one by x, I'm left with -3. Alright, over here, let's see, this was a plus 4x. So I need to factor out the greatest common factor of 4 and 6. So they can both be divided by 2, so that's what I'm going to do. Divide by 2. So when I factor the 2 out, I'm left with 2x minus 3. So now you can see the insides match, which is good news. That means that's one of my factors, and the other factor is the outside. So at this point you want to stop the video and you want to try to do problems 22 and 23 on your own, and check your answers then with the video. Alright, so moving on to 22 and 23. In problem 22, we're trying to find two numbers that multiply to 3 times 8, which is 24. And then those same numbers they have to add to 14. So let's make pairs for 24. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. So the pair of numbers that adds to 14 is 2 and 12. Because I have a number in front of my x squared, I can't just put these numbers into the factor. I need to split my 14x up to be 2x plus 12x. Bring down 3x squared, and bring down plus 8. Alright, then split these in half. So you're looking at the first two, and the common factor of 3x squared and 2x is x. So we're going to factor the x out. So 3x squared divided by x is 3x. 2x divided by x is 2. For 12x and 8, The greatest common factor is 4. So factor out the 4. 12x divided by 4 is 3x, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So because the insides are matching, you know you're on the right track. One of your factors is 3x plus 2. 3x plus 2 is being multiplied by x and by 4. Alright, in 23, you need two numbers that multiply to give you 10. I got the 10 with 2 times 5. Alright, so the numbers that multiply to 10, and they have to add to negative 11. So for 10, it could be 1 times 10, or 2 times 5, but these aren't going to add to a negative, so let's make them negative. Negative 1 times negative 10, negative 2 times negative 5, and now I found the numbers. So you're going to break negative 11 up into negative 1x minus 10x. Bring down 2x squared, and bring down plus 5. Alright, so then you're going to split this in half, and for your first two, they have a common factor of x, so take that out. When you divide by x, you get 2x minus 1. The second pair has a common factor of 5, but because the first term is negative, I'm going to factor out a negative 5. So divide by negative 5, and that gives you 2x minus 1. So the insides match. 2x minus 1 is one of your factors, and the outside, x minus 5, is the other factor. Alright, so if you got these two right, you can move on to the next section. If you need some extra help, you can move on to 25 and 27. Okay, in problem 25, we need to find two numbers that multiply to 2 times negative 8. So they have to multiply to negative 16, and they have to add to negative 15. So negative 16 could be 1 times negative 16, 2 times negative 8, 4 times negative 4, and you're looking for the pair of numbers that adds to negative 15, so it's this pair right here. So you're going to break negative 15x into two parts, 1x and minus 16x, and then bring down 2x squared, and bring down minus 8. Alright, then split them in half, and these two have a common factor of x. So when I factor out the x, I get 2x plus 1. And these two have a common factor of negative 8. So factor out the negative 8, and I have 2x plus 1. So the inside is a factor, 2x plus 1. And that's being multiplied by x and by minus 8. Okay, last one here. You need two numbers that multiply to 3 times 9. So they have to multiply to 36. And they have to add to negative 15. So I'm thinking it's going to be a negative times a negative to give me 36. Could be negative 1 times negative 36, negative 2 times negative 18, negative 3 times negative 12, and I think I found the pair right here. This pair adds to negative 15. So break the negative 15 into two pieces, negative 3x minus 12x. Bring down the plus 9, and bring down the 4x squared. Okay, now divide this in half and factor by grouping. The first two only have x in common, so we're going to factor the x out. 4x squared divided by x is 4x, minus 3x over x is minus 3. The second pair have 3 in common, but because the leading term is negative, you want to factor out a negative 3. So there's the negative 3, this gives you 4x, and this gives you minus 3. So the insides are matching, 4x minus 3, and that's multiplied by the x and by the minus 3. Okay, so let's turn to the next page. Alright, this factoring by grouping is a simpler version of what we just did because you're already given 4 terms. So all you need to do is cut them in half and look for the greatest common factor of each pair. For my first pair, I have x to the third and 3x squared. So both terms have at least x squared in it. So I'm going to take the x squared out. So x cubed over x squared is x minus, these x squareds cancel, so I get x minus 3. And these two, they have a common factor of 5, so I'm going to factor the 5 out. When I divide these, I get x, and when I divide these, I get minus 3. So one of my factors is x minus 3, and that's being multiplied by x squared and by plus 5. Alright, so you should pause here and try 28 and 30 on your own. In 28, the first two terms have at least x squared in them, so we're going to take out the x squared. This gives me x plus 4. The second two terms are both divisible by 5, so I'm going to factor a 5 out. And this gives me x plus 4. So x plus 4 and times x squared plus 5. Alright, last one, split them in half, and these two terms both have at least x squared, so I'm going to take out the x squared, and this gives me 3x. Oh, I need to take a 3 out as well, don't I? These are both divisible by 3 as well. So there's a 3, 3, and 3. So that's going to change this inside here. Alright, so 3x cubed divided by 3x squared is just x minus, and this is going to give me 2. Alright, you know, it's looking to me now like I should have taken out this 3 in the first place, but I might just do that in the end. Okay, so then here I can find these are both divisible by 12. So take out the 12, and I have 12x minus 2. So x minus 2 is good. That's one of my factors. And the other factor is 3x squared plus 12. But I'm realizing now I should have factored out the 3 in the first place, just taken it out of the whole thing. But I can do that now. I can take the 3 out of this one. So if I factor 3 out of this one, that's going to give me 3 times x squared plus 4. And that's still times x minus 2. And for your final answer, you just want to move that 3 out front. So 3 x minus 2 and x squared plus 4. Okay. Alright, so our last pattern to factor is sum and difference of cubes. And I'm going to write the patterns up here for you. Some teachers will give you SOPs to help you remember how to factor these. I'm going to give you the patterns and let your teacher decide how you want to remember them. So if you have a cubed plus b cubed, the pattern is a plus b, a squared minus ab plus b squared. And if you have difference of cubes, a cubed minus b cubed is very similar. It starts with, instead of a plus b, it starts with a minus b, a squared, and then this is going to be a plus, where it was a minus here, plus ab plus b squared. Okay, so the first one is a sum of cubes, and I want to rewrite the 8 as something to the third power. So if you're not sure, you can try a few things on your calculator, but you'll find it's 2 to the third power. So in your pattern, wherever you see a, you're going to put x, and wherever you see b, you're going to put 2. So x plus 2. And then x squared minus ab. So that would be x, 2, but usually you see that written as 2x plus b squared, so 2 squared, which is 4. Okay. In this one, I want to rewrite both numbers as cubes. So some number to the third power is 27. Try a few things out, but you will find it's 3. And then some number to the third power is 1000, that's 10. So we're using the a cubed minus b cubed pattern. My a is 3x and my b is 10. So I have 3x minus 10. Then I have the square of this, so that would be the square of 3x plus a times b, so that would be 3x times 10. And then the square of 10. So I just want to simplify the second part. 3x minus 10. When I square this, I want to square the 3 and the x, so I get 9x squared. This gives me 30x. And 10 squared is 100. Alright, so you should pause the video here and see if you can do these next on your own, and then check it with the video. Alright, what number cubed is 1? That's 1. 1 to the third power is 1. So that means, using my sum pattern, a is x and b is 1. So instead of a plus b, you want to write x plus 1. A squared is going to be x squared minus ab, so x times 1 is 1x, plus b squared. 1 squared is still 1. Okay. For this one, I want to write 125 as 5 to the third. So altogether, this is 5y to the third minus, I want to write the 8 as 2 to the third. So this is 2x to the third. So I'm using the difference pattern, and my a is 5y and my b is 2x. So I have 5y minus 2x. And then I have the square of 5y plus 5y times 2x and plus the square of 2x. So I want to simplify that part. 5y minus 2x. This gives me 25y squared. This gives me 10xy. Oops, I don't want to close it yet. And this gives me 4x squared. Alright, and this last one here. I'm going to rewrite 64 as 4 cubed minus x cubed. So I'm going to use the difference of cubes right here. My a is 4 and my b is x. So I have 4 minus x. A squared, so 4 squared is 16, plus 4 times x, 4x, plus x squared. And that one's done. Okay, so that's the end of your factoring review.